Disclaimer. The video serves informational and entertainment purpose only. The content is considered speculative and should not be treated as confirmed fact. We encourage you to conduct your research and form your conclusion.
It was supposed to be a quiet Monday in Hollywood. Just another press announcement. Just another Disney move. But by nightfall, the internet was on fire. Whispers turned into shouts. Headlines flooded timelines. And a single question echoed across fan forums, podcasts, and studio boardrooms. What the hell just happened at Marvel? 3 of the MCU's biggest stars, Robert Downey Jr., Ryan Reynolds, and Chris Pratt, had walked out. Not fired, not politely retired. Walked, outside, silently, publicly, and all at once. No statements, no explanations, no apologies. Downey wiped his Marvel credits from his bio. Reynolds tweeted a cryptic gif of Deadpool walking away from an explosion. Pratt posted just 10 words to his Instagram story. You get to choose what hill you die on. It was bold, it was calculated, and it was war. By the next morning, Hollywood insiders were calling it Marvel's worst PR disaster since the Scarlett Johansson lawsuit. But this wasn't about money. It wasn't even about fame. This was about control. Because behind the cameras, behind the red carpets, and behind the billion-dollar box office numbers, Marvel was falling apart, quietly, slowly, until now. And at the center of this implosion, a single show, Ironheart, a modest series with a teenage tech genius in the lead role. That, according to insiders, became the spark for a silent rebellion that no one at Disney saw coming. But what was it about this one show that pushed Marvel's 3 biggest names to burn the bridge they helped build? And more importantly, why is no one at Disney saying a word?
We're like, wait, hold on. Is she? Like, where is this going?
To the public, Ironheart was just another Marvel side project, a spin-off, a filler show, a teenage prodigy building her own Iron Man suit. Harmless, right? Not to Marvel's veterans. Behind the scenes, that quiet announcement, a second season renewal, hit like a grenade. The show had launched to lukewarm reviews. Some praised its bold representation. Others tore it apart for its awkward pacing, forced messaging, and a lead character who felt more like a checklist than a hero. Even fans seemed confused. Ratings were mid. International viewership? Barely a blip. Yet suddenly, this underperforming series wasn't just renewed, it was promoted. Ironheart was named a central pillar of Phase 7. And that's when things snapped. According to multiple insiders, Downey, Reynolds, and Pratt had already been uncomfortable. They'd been watching from the sidelines as Marvel's tone shifted. Its stories got louder, and the characters they helped define slowly morphed into something unfamiliar. But this felt personal. Because while Ironheart got a second wind, their own projects years in the making, were quietly pushed aside. Robert Downey Jr., once the face of Marvel, was in talks to return in a multiverse cameo for Armor Wars. Ryan Reynolds had signed on for a Deadpool trilogy that would weave through both the Avengers and X-Men. Chris Pratt had already filmed a Star-Lord spin-off for Disney+, exploring his journey after Endgame. Each one of those projects? Dead in the water. Not because of creative failure, not because of scheduling, but because of something much deeper, a deliberate pivot. A clear signal that the universe these 3 had built was no longer theirs. And when Ironheart was handed the spotlight, it wasn't seen as a win for the future. It was seen as a warning to the past. One Marvel producer, speaking off the record, said it best. They felt betrayed. They'd given Marvel their prime years, helped turn it from comic book junk into global mythology. And now, they were watching the thing they built get handed to strangers. What happened next wasn't a tantrum. It was a statement, not a phone call, not a press release. A walkout, coordinated, calculated, final. The press didn't even have time to react because the storm had already started brewing online. No press conference, no interviews, no official statements from Marvel or Disney. Instead, silence. And that silence, it was deafening. It started subtly. A few eagle-eyed fans noticed something odd. Robert Downey Jr., who had proudly kept his Marvel credentials front and center for years, suddenly removed every MCU mention from his bio. Then came Chris Pratt, posting a story to Instagram with just one cryptic line. You get to choose what hill you die on. I just chose mine. Hours later, Ryan Reynolds joined in. No caption, no words, just a single GIF, Deadpool walking away from an explosion. 3 of Marvel's most iconic heroes had gone dark. And the fans? They lit up. Within hours, the hashtag MCU Exodus was trending in over a dozen countries. Speculation ran wild. Did they get fired? Was this a contract dispute? Is Marvel collapsing? But amidst all the noise, one thing stood out. Marvel said nothing. Not even Kevin Feige, the man who had orchestrated the entire Marvel machine, stepped forward. And that silence spoke louder than any press release ever could. The coordinated move wasn't just a PR disaster. It was a power play. The actors didn't have to speak. Their absence said everything. Overnight, YouTube channels, Twitter threads, and Reddit boards exploded with theories. One insider even described the situation to Variety as not a breakdown in negotiations, a walkout. They were done, and the silence didn't stop with the actors. Soon, Marvel staffers went quiet. Executives refused interviews. Behind closed doors, a storm was brewing, because the moment wasn't just viral, it was historic. For the first time in over a decade, Marvel wasn't in control of the story. Inside Marvel Studios, the silence didn't mean calm, it meant chaos. By Tuesday morning, just 24 hours after the walkout began, Kevin Feige, Bob Iger, and the top brass of Disney and Marvel were locked in a private emergency summit. Location, Burbank headquarters. Agenda, crisis containment. But this wasn't just about 3 missing stars. This was about something far more dangerous. The MCU's identity was collapsing from within. According to insiders, the atmosphere in that meeting was tense, combative even. Feige, known for his calculated control, defended the new vision. He pointed to Ironheart, Echo, and Agatha all along as bold attempts to expand Marvel's universe into a broader, more inclusive landscape. Bob Iger? Less poetic. He cut through the vision talk with a cold, pragmatic question. What's the plan to retain top-tier talent without losing the fans? No one had an answer. And that silence? That was the real emergency. Because this wasn't just about creative differences. This was about a war of ideology. On one side, a new generation of showrunners and writers pushing Marvel toward progressive narratives and box-check storytelling. Emphasis on message-first content, social justice themes baked into every arc. On the other side, legacy talent like Downey, Reynolds, and Pratt. Creatives who believed Marvel was losing its soul, its characters, its coherence, its emotional core. One veteran script consultant, someone who had worked across multiple MCU phases, put it bluntly. The problem isn't that Marvel went woke. The problem is, they stopped listening to anyone who wasn't already in the choir. Even worse, the actors had receipts. Robert Downey Jr. had submitted script notes asking for a more grounded, ethically complex Iron Man return. Reynolds fought to keep Deadpool sharp, subversive, and irreverent in his crossover. Pratt wanted a character-driven Star-Lord arc about regret and redemption. All ignored, because Marvel didn't want adjustments. They wanted alignment. And that alignment? It wasn't about story anymore. It was about strategy. Behind closed doors, one internal memo had already leaked, labeling Ironheart as the anchor IP for Gen Z progressive alignment. That phrase? It wasn't just marketing jargon. It was fuel. Fans saw it. Critics latched onto it. And the actors? They took it as confirmation that the Marvel they built was gone. By the end of that emergency summit, everyone in the room knew this wasn't a small walkout. This was a rebellion, and it had already spread far beyond their control. This wasn't about fame. This wasn't about power. This was about the soul of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the people who helped build it were watching it get erased. For over a decade, Robert Downey Jr., Ryan Reynolds, and Chris Pratt had poured themselves into this universe. They weren't just actors, they were architects. They had watched this empire rise from niche comic fans to billion-dollar premieres. They had sacrificed time, identity, and creative energy to make these characters real. And now, they were being phased out, quietly, coldly, clinically. Not because they failed, but because they no longer fit the blueprint. Each one had fought to preserve the integrity of their characters. Downey wanted a Tony Stark return that explored guilt, legacy, and redemption, not just another multiverse cash-in. Reynolds begged for Deadpool to stay irreverent, biting, and self-aware, even inside Disney's sanitized walls. Pratt envisioned Star-Lord's post-Endgame journey as a character study in grief, leadership, and letting go. They had notes, they had passion, and they were ignored. Marvel, by then, wasn't a collaboration. It was a corporate machine with a message, a target demo, and a checklist. And the breaking point wasn't some dramatic argument or scandal. It was the slow, soul-crushing realization that the stories they once believed in were no longer their stories. Even their silence had a message. Downey reposted a quote from his Oppenheimer press tour: "Legacy is built in silence and defended in storms." Reynolds? He didn't say a word. Just let a Deadpool gif say it all. Walk away. Let it burn. And Pratt? That one line on his Instagram, "You get to choose what hill you die on." They chose storytelling. They chose characters. They chose meaning. And when Disney ignored all three, they walked. Not to hurt the MCU, but to protect the one thing that made it matter: its heart. You can replace actors, you can rewrite scripts, but you can't fake authenticity. And when Downey, Reynolds, and Pratt walked out, Marvel didn't just lose star power. It lost its shield. The fallout was instant and brutal. First came the fans. Social media turned into a war zone. Some blamed the actors, calling them egotistical, anti-progress, or out of touch. Others saw them as heroes, whistleblowers, finally speaking up for what so many fans had been feeling for years. Fan petitions erupted. One demanded the reversal of Ironheart's Renewal. Another called for a full rework of Phase 7. A third begged Disney to sit down and beg the actors to return. But this wasn't just online noise. Real-world consequences hit harder and faster than anyone expected. Merchandising froze. A toy manufacturer pulled upcoming Ironheart action figures from its summer rollout. Retailers quietly backed out of Phase 7 licensing deals. Internal projections were revised downward, fast. Theme parks pivoted. Disneyland and Disney World had plans to roll out Ironheart-themed attractions and appearances. Suddenly, those promotions were shelved. In their place, quiet reboots of legacy MCU branding. No explanation, just panic control. Press blackout backfires. Disney thought they could ride the storm out. They launched a flurry of carefully worded statements about evolving cinematic storytelling and inclusive legacy narratives. But fans weren't buying it. They didn't want PR slogans. They wanted answers. And Marvel had none. They hadn't just lost 3 stars. They had lost the narrative. And in an age of content creators and viral TikToks, once you lose the narrative, you lose everything. Back-channel emails leaked. Investors started asking questions. YouTubers with millions of subscribers jumped in, breaking down the walkout, the creative rift, the internal chaos. Marvel, the studio once known for masterful story control, was now the story. And it wasn't pretty. Because behind all the branding and billion-dollar numbers, there was a truth Disney couldn't silence. The fans were losing faith, the actors were done, and the machine was cracking. Hollywood watched the walkout with a mix of awe and fear. This wasn't just a creative disagreement. This was a revolution, one led not by writers or critics, but by the faces of the franchise itself. And within days, the shockwaves spread. Influencers take sides. YouTubers with millions of followers released emergency videos. Marvel is collapsing from the inside. Downey's walkout explained. Disney's biggest mistake yet. Podcasters, bloggers, Twitter critics, everyone weighed in. And the tone was clear. This wasn't about politics. It was about storytelling being sacrificed at the altar of studio mandates. One creator, a former Marvel consultant, said on air, "You don't walk away from a $20 million contract unless you believe something sacred is being destroyed." Petitions explode. Hundreds of thousands of fans sign open letters demanding the return of the actors, a complete overhaul of Phase 7, a shift back to character-first storytelling. And in response, silence. Disney stays tight-lipped. But behind that silence, everything is on fire. Downward Wall Street notices. Disney's stock dips. Quiet at first, but noticeable. Analysts stop asking about quarterly earnings and start asking the real question: has the Marvel formula finally run dry? Investors demand internal reviews. Studio heads scramble to assure them, we're on top of it. They're not. Because at this point, even inside Marvel, there's chaos. The launch of Project Resurge. While the public debates rage, Disney secretly rolls out an internal operation, Project Resurge. Its mission? Save the MCU. Led by a mix of Infinity Saga veterans and outside consultants, Project Resurge is tasked with rewriting key Phase 7 scripts, pausing underperforming series, reinstating legacy characters for surprise cameos, whispering reconciliation offers to Downey, Reynolds, and Pratt's management teams. Phone calls were made, promises were floated. No public statements, just quiet, desperate action. And so far, not a single actor has responded. Because this wasn't a ploy, it wasn't a tantrum. It was something far more dangerous. A quiet, principled rebellion. And now, Disney faced the truth they'd tried to bury. The actors weren't bluffing. They were building a new future, without Marvel. No public interviews. No exclusive tell-all. No official shade. Just silence. Since their walkout, Downey, Reynolds, and Pratt haven't said a single word about Marvel. And yet, they've said everything. Each of them is quietly moving on. Downey is rumored to be developing an indie film with a former Marvel screenwriter, a grounded character drama, far from the CGI glow. Reynolds is teasing a new superhero satire with another studio, his signature sarcasm fully unleashed. Pratt is in talks to headline a gritty political miniseries about a disillusioned leader on the edge. None of these are accidents. None of them scream revenge. They whisper something more powerful: freedom. Because this walkout was never just about Ironheart. It wasn't even about Marvel's Phase 7. It was about the soul of storytelling and the realization that the machine they helped build no longer served the purpose it was built for.
They weren't angry,
A close friend of Reynolds said.
they were heartbroken.
And that heartbreak? That's what fans are feeling now, too. Marvel wasn't just a brand. It was a bond between audience and character, between actor and arc, between story and soul. And now, that bond is broken. The question that remains: yes, Marvel may recast. Yes, Phase 7 may go on. Yes, the marketing spin will roll forward. But the emotional continuity is gone. The trust is fractured. The excitement, muted. The magic, dimming. And the stars who once made the MCU feel like a shared myth. They've walked away, not in scandal, not in drama, but in quiet rebellion, because they remembered something the studio forgot. You can build a universe, you can build a brand, but you can't build meaning without heart. So now, the greatest question facing Marvel isn't about Phase 7, or box office numbers, or franchise fatigue. It's this: can a cinematic universe survive without the people who gave it its soul? If this stunned you like it stunned the industry, hit that like button and subscribe. We dive deep into the stories Hollywood doesn't want you to hear. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this a betrayal of the fans, or the start of something better? The future of Marvel? It's no longer inevitable. It's unwritten.